everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be explaining a project I recently made. It's a website that shows you the NASA astronomy picture of the day each day, and it also gives you a little bit of information about it. So I created this project using React.js and the NASA APOD API. If you don't know what React.js is, well then, React.js is a super popular JavaScript library used for building fast, interactive user interfaces, especially for web apps. Think of it like this. Instead of coding everything from scratch every time a part of your web page changes, React just helps update just the parts that need it, making things smoother and quicker. It also helps you split your web app into smaller reusable pieces called components, making it easier to manage big projects. Also, in React.js, the HTML and CSS are HTML and JavaScript are combined. And if you're completely new to web development and you know nothing about it, so one of the first things you need to know is like what is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So you can think of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript coming together to create the entire website, and you can think of the website as the full body, and HTML would be the skeleton. Because HTML, what it does is it's used to create the structure of the website. So like the basic framework. CSS, well, that is what makes the styling. So you're styling it, making it look good and cleaner. So that would be everything on the outside of your body. And JavaScript, well, that would be the brain because that's what makes everything actually interactive and makes things work on the website. So those are the three parts of web development. And React.js is just helps with that, easier to use. Alright, so here is the website. Right now, you can see the image. It's not there, it's just a black screen. Well, that's probably just some issue with the image. Sometimes the image might not load. But usually it loads, and other than the image, everything is working fine, as you can see. So what this website has, it has the title over here, rocket launch seen from the International Space Station. That's the image. And here you can click on this button to see more information about it. And it's talking about the image, what it is about, and giving some more information. And it also has the date and the title here. And you can either click on this or this background over here to get out of it. Yeah. So yeah, that's the website, and this all is made using React.js and the API. Also, you can see there the rocket launch as seen from the International Space Station next to a little image symbol. Yeah, sometimes when the image is not available for some error or something like that, it just shows that. Alright, so here is VS Code open up, Visual Studio Code, and this is where I have all my code for the website. So as you can see, I mentioned that React.js, what it has, it splits up the app into multiple components. And you can see here we have a components section folder, and here we have three components, the footer.jsx, main, and sidebar. And then we also have the app.jsx. So in the app.jsx, all these components come together to make the website. And so let's start off with the footer. So as you can see here, we have the code for the footer. The footer is the stuff at the bottom of the page. So you saw the title and it said APOD project down there. And there was also that little information button. So that's what all things the footer contains. So we have a footer and show modal, handle toggle modal, and data. You will see more of that later on. That's really important in this website. Handle toggle modal is what we are using to toggle the sidebar uh, overlay on and off. So when you click on the button, it comes on, and when you click on the overlay or on the closing button, the other button on the sidebar, then it closes. Data, now that's the variable for where all the data for the API is stored. So as you can see here, in this H2, okay, so first H1 and H2, for those of you that are just getting started with web development, H1 is heading 1, and it goes from H1 to H6, I think, and it gets smaller as it goes. H1 is the largest, H6 is the smallest, and it's basically like the heading. So everything in HTML, it has these tags. All the elements in HTML, like paragraphs, buttons, headings, as you can see here. So everything is made using these tags. And in between the tags, in this area right here, is where you put the information, is like the text, what you wanted to have. And in this space over here, in the first tag, you can put space and add any attributes. Like here we have this attribute saying what will happen once this button is clicked. More on that later. And so the first tag will have this arrows surrounded by the name of the tag. And the second tag will be the same thing but with a slash in front of the name. So yeah, you always have to have that, and also the stuff in between. That's what you need. So here we have the title. So this we're calling the title from the API data. So the title of the image. Div, what div is basically a HTML element in which it's basically a container, and you store things inside of it. So everything inside that div, yeah, and you can use it for things like styling. It can be easier to group things together and put them in a specific place and other things like that. So this div is called a background gradient, and the class name is called background gradient. So what a class is in HTML, a class is like you give elements class if you want like all of those elements to have some specific styling. So you won't go and just repeatedly do style all of those elements individually. So it's just way easier to just use class to style all of those elements at once, since you want all those elements to have that one style. And in React, we actually have to use class name, but if you're just doing regular vanilla HTML, CSS, then you'll just use class. So in this div, we have the title and yeah, that. And here we have the button. So here's the button tag, and here we have the on-click attribute. So this handle toggle modal will be passed when it's on-clicked. So that'll, and you know why? Because I explained that handle toggle modal opens up or closes the sidebar. So, and this is the button that opens up the sidebar. So this is giving the icon, and we got the icon from a website online, and there you can find an icon that you need, and you can click on it and it'll show you an option to get the HTML. So that's what we use for this. So as you can see, it has this stuff. And yes, so this is all the code for the footer. Main.jsx, well, main doesn't really have much. Main is just simply the background image, which today wasn't working for some reason. And so it has the source. So whenever you create an image, you don't have two tags. You only have one tag, and the tag ends with the slash after the name of the tag. And in between, you have all of these attributes. So you always need the source when you are creating an image tag because there's no other way it can know where to get the image from. And for that, we are using data.html URL. So that's calling the URL of the image from the API. This alt, so remember when I moved my video from the corner and you saw that it showed some text. It was saying something like it was saying rocket launch as seen from the International Space Station. So, and it had a little image icon next to it. Yeah, so when the image fails to load for whatever reason, that's what it will show so that you can still know, so that you can have a little description of what the image was supposed to show. And so for that, the easiest way you can just show that is just call the title of the image, which can explain enough about the image. And class name background image, we're again giving a class to this so that we can add some styling later on in CSS. And we're also giving a class to the div. So now onto the sidebar. Sidebar, it has a lot of things. So first we have this big class. Oh yeah, and whenever you do HTML, the way you make your code clean and organized is by using indents. So whenever something is inside of another thing, like this div is inside of this div and this div is inside of this uh, stuff. So whenever you do that, you want to indents so that you can easily tell what is inside of what. As you can see, this paragraph tag is inside of this div, which is inside of this div, which is inside of this, which is inside of that. So it's pretty easy to tell. So we have the entire div for the entire sidebar. And then we have handle toggle modal, which is clicked when you click BG overlay, the div with the class name BG overlay. You remember when I clicked out of the sidebar earlier in the demo? I clicked on the background, not on the button to close it, as there were two ways to close it. And one of them was the background. So so that was the BG overlay because it's an overlay on top of the background image, which makes the image slightly darker because when you're looking at the description, you're not trying to see the image, so it can help you focus on the description instead. And you can also click on it. So yeah. And then we have another div. As you can see, this is on the same level because it's same indent. So this div, it has a class name, sidebar contents, and this is all the content of the sidebar. We first of all have a heading 2, and it's calling the title of the image from the API. And then we have another div called description container, and in that it contains the description title class, which has the date and which is called from the API, and also we call the explanation from the API and just put that into a paragraph tag. After that div, we have a button, which again, similar to what we saw in the footer, we use a icon that we got from the internet, and the button tags are around it, and on click is equals handle toggle modal. So it's basically the same thing with just a different icon. So that was it for the components. Now we come over to app.jsx, which is where everything comes together. So we're importing all the components. We're importing all the components here. And dot slash component slash footer, that's basically getting which folder the file is in. Same thing with main and sidebar. And then we're creating function app, which will be calls to like open up the thing, the website. So yeah, this is the handle toggle modal function which is being created, and it'll show it'll show the sidebar when it's toggled on and hide it when it's toggled off. And uh, we are creating a function fetch API data. So const NASA key. So this stuff is importing the API key from the .env. So here's .env. I won't let you see the API key because you should never show anyone your API key for anything. So, but as you can see, we have this variable created, and then it's storing an API key, and we're importing that into app.jsx so that we can store it in something called NASA key. And the URL is just combining the URL for the API and also combining the key. So here it's just, so all of this is just code to make it so that whenever you like run your website multiple times in a day, you don't keep fetching the API each time. You only fetch it like the next day or a different day. So that's why we're checking today. We're creating a new date for today. And local key is basically we're creating something and it's NASA and today's date. And it'll get it from the local cache because when you run it for the first time in a day, it'll store it in the cache for you to retrieve it from there, fetch it from there other times throughout the day, which prevents you from burning through your API uses because there's a set limit on the API. I'm pretty sure it's 100 for this one. So it'll fetch it from the cache, and after the end of the day, it'll clear the local storage. And if not, then it'll just get the API, fetch it from the API. And if there's an error, it'll catch it and print it out. So we're running the fetch API data function here. So now this stuff is we're just getting all the stuff for all the components. And if the data is not retrieved yet, that means we can't have the image, title, literally anything. So we have to, so we'll just say that the website is loading. And to do that, we'll have to style it later, I'll show you. But we can make a class called loading state and class name. We're creating this icon for the loading state so that it'll look like a loading icon. Like you see those circles spinning around. Yeah, so it's basically like that. And yeah, so this CSS looks like a lot, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Uh, you'll have to do a lot of styling if you want to create or if you want to make your website look very clean and professional. So here we have some basic styling for everything. Font family. So basically so each one of these things, we have a bunch of styles, and this top part and bottom part, this is called a CSS rule. And a CSS rule, it starts with the selector, which is which things you want to style with that rule. And then you'll have, let me just show it to you. So this is the selector H1. Suppose we want to style all the H1s. And then we'll add these curly brackets, click enter, and add whatever style we want. So if you want to make the text color red, boom, done. So we have color, colon, red, semicolon. So that's how CSS rules work. So here we have a bunch of styles, and this selector, this symbol, that selects all the things, all the HTML elements. So this is the style for everything. Padding, padding is the space uh, in between the elements. So it's if it's in a container, it's the space between it and the other objects in the container or the container boundaries. Margin is the space around the element, and margin can also be used to move it left, up, right, down, etc. So we're having some more styles. So flex is like a it makes the layout flexible. So basically, it's used to create a flexible container that enables a flexible layout for its elements, and it allows you to arrange items in a row or a column and control their alignment and spacing. So here, so if we want to use a class as a selector, what we'll do is first put a dot before the class and then the actual class name. And if we want to use an ID as the selector, an ID is basically a it's a it's similar to a class, but instead is used when you want just for a singular object. For example, you want only one specific h1 to be styled some way, so you won't use h1. And instead of using class, you can just simply use the ID, because you don't need to have multiple. ID only works for one. Class works for multiple. So you'll just give it that ID and style it using the ID. And to select using an ID, we have this symbol and the ID name. It's that simple. So we have a bunch of styles for image container. We're giving it display flex, max height, width. Background image, we're giving it a width and height of 100%. And flex of 1, object fit is covering. Footer, well, so its position is absolute. Bottom 0, left 0. Its width is 100%. This is also flex container. It's aligning everything in the center. And a gap is like how much space, it's like how much gap there is, basically. And now here's a different type of selector. Like we have two things. So first we have footer, but then we're also selecting a div. So what this does is, like, if you want to select a specific h1, all the h1s within a specific div tag, or all the paragraph tags within a div tag, or within all the div tags, then you will first put like the thing that the element you want to style is inside of. So in this case, the div is inside of the footer. So we'll put the footer first, a space, and then what is the element inside of this? So div. So the divs inside the footer. So that's what we're doing here with this rule. Same thing with this, h2's inside the footer, h1's inside the footer. You get the idea. And we can even increase that to 3, so the icon inside the button inside the footer. Yeah. Oh yeah, and the transition duration. So basically, you see this button hover. So when you put colon and then hover, that's like a special selector. So whenever you're hovering over an element, that you're making this rule for, all the styles inside here will apply then when you're hovering over that element. Not if you're, so if you're not hovering over it, those styles won't apply. It'll just be normal, however you styled it over here. But if you are hovering, then this is the style, how it'll change. The transition duration is basically how long it'll take to transition to this styling. The cursor pointer, so basically it'll have a pointer cursor. So you see my cursor over here right now. So it'll look like that. This is the regular cursor, this is the pointer cursor, and yeah. So here we are creating a BG gradient, which you saw on the website. It was kind of like getting is okay. You couldn't really see it then because the image wasn't there, but usually what it'll do is it'll be changing, it'll be becoming a bit lighter. So you probably know what a gradient is, but if you don't, a it's when like a color is gradually shifting into a different color. So that's like a gradient. So if your gradient background, you can have blue slowly shifting into purple. So it then start blue in the left and on the right and go purple to the left. So here we're creating a gradient for the background and yeah, so this is the first, so it's going from to the top, so like that, and starting this and ending this. Z index, so you know X is horizontal left to right and Y is vertical up and down. Z is like depth, so it's like the third dimension. So uh, how many layers in front it is. So this is, yeah, -1 is the Z index for this. Sidebar content, okay. Sidebar, we have all of this styling. Background overlay, well, this is the overlay that would uh, show when handle toggle modal was on to make the background a bit darker. Sidebar contents, if it's overflowing in the Y direction, then you'll have to scroll down. And remember I said we can use flex to make things in a column or row. Yeah, here we're giving it a flex direction, so it'll go in a column, which is vertical. Margin left, background, all of that. So this is all the H2s in the sidebar content. There's only one, I'm pretty sure. So we have this. Uh, yeah, and we again have a different button similar to the previous one. Again, we have a hover styling also. And here are some stylings for the description, container, and title, and loading state. So to actually make the loading icon, it needs to spin. The icon needs to spin. So here we are creating an animation. When you create an animation, you first put add keyframes. And you will have a from. So this is the starting position, and to, this is the ending position. So it'll rotate from 0 degrees to 360 degrees. At media, well, at media is not for animation. That's actually for something else. This is for making your site responsive to different screen sizes. So if I am looking on this website on my phone, how it should be able to adjust to the smaller screen. And it should be able to take advantage of the full size of a bigger screen, like on a laptop like this. So this is the styling if the minimum width of the screen is 640 pixels. So it's pretty much the same, but instead it's indented so that we all know that this is just for the media styling. So that's it for the CSS. I know there's a lot. I didn't have time to go over everything in detail, but yeah. So this isn't really that important. Uh, okay, we have index.html. So index.html. Now in this project, we didn't use HTML much. I'd just like to quickly explain how HTML works. So every time when you start a new HTML, you will have you will put this at the top, this tag. Doesn't have a slash or anything. It just has question mark doc type space HTML. Then we have this HTML tags, and everything in between this is so everything is inside of these two HTML tags. So one indent, and we have the head tags. And then all the stuff inside this is like the important stuff for the website. So this is some stuff, and the links is when you need to like link something to the website, like your CSS file, you need to link it there, or any icons as we have done here, or any fonts and things like that, as you can see. And we also added title. Here our title is APOD project. And the title is basically what you see at the top of the browser screen. So you know on that little thing where you click on to go back into the site was open, and it has a little icon next to the words. So yeah, that's what the title is for. And after the head, we have a body, same indent. And inside the body, we have all the content of our web page. Now, since we use React.js, everything is over here. But in vanilla HTML, you have a lot of stuff here. So we just created a div root, and here we have to link the script. So yeah, we link src main.jsx. So here we have that, and that's it for the web page. Alright guys, so if you enjoyed that video, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment if you had any questions, if you want any further clarifications, or if you have any good ideas for what kind of videos I should do next. Alright, but guys, bye.